What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's Bag of Recruiting Chips episode of The Coach and the Couch Potato. As always, I'm Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate, who is rocking the Finley hat to pay homage to our guy Luke Montgomery. We are here courtesy of the Barn Baseball and Softball Academy, and we've got a lot to cover tonight. It's a big visit weekend. We've had a couple booms. Um, our new AD, newish AD, kind of called out Fox this week. So yeah, got some things to dive into. We'll see how it goes, and we might even catch you guys up on the personal lives at the end of it.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, we'll jump right into it. Two guys that we've talked about a lot that visited within the last couple weeks. Our guy Favour Akih, Delaware Hayes running back, commits to the Buckeyes.
Yeah, man. This is that's a bit. Listen, big commit. Anytime we get a Central Ohio guy to commit to the Buckeyes, we're going to be rooting for him. I think this is a kid who is a little underrated in the class, a little bit of a late bloomer. But I'm telling you, man, I just think this kid has all the intangibles and the tools to be a really good running back at Ohio State. Just get him to Coach Mick. That's the only thing I can think about. Just get him to Coach Mick, get him to Coach Locke, and this kid is got it all. So, man, I'm so pumped up. The Pacers got a Marionaire on their coaching staff, so shout out to him for helping guide this young man and lead this young man. And so I'm happy that we got this guy in the fold, man. Favour is a great young man from all we've heard about him, and he can definitely play, man. So I'm glad we got him.
Yeah, little thing I found out this week. A couple things. He's only 16.
Is he really? Wow.
Yeah. So he's very young, but he's so physical, like we talked about last week. Um, and he had fun at school with the recruiting process.
Absolutely.
He told about 100 different kids, 100 different things. It sounds like from the Delaware TMZ reports I'm getting. But at the end of the day, the same person who relayed that to me has told me he is probably the most humble kid that he's ever met. So I'm excited for him. And another guy, this is a guy that I think people underestimated how much we liked Khary Wilder.
Yeah.
When, you go back and we read the comments in the YouTube video, and what we meant when we said that people wouldn't be thrilled was because Ohio State fans are enamored with names.
Yeah.
And Ohio State got in Khary Wilder's recruitment very late.
Yeah.
And to already go get him, we talked about watching the film, like, this kid is legit.
Yeah, absolutely. This kid can play, man. And listen, he's a kid that can be that strong side 5 technique, or he can grow into a 3 technique in our defense if we maintain this 4-man front. I think he's got so much versatility up front. And when we were saying that, he may not get a lot of fanfare or a lot of love right away, is because we are, as fans, are clamoring for that big 315, 330-pound Jameer Perez defensive tackle. And that's what we need, and that's what all the Buckeye fans are wanting. And so that is what we're looking for. And I just, had the idea that this guy may fly under the radar, and I don't think he should, because I think he is an absolute stud. And so, like you said, to get in late on this young man and to get him into the fold this quick, again, get him to Coach Mick. And this is a guy who is going to be a player. He has got some Edric Houston in there, man. I just think this kid is a baller. And if he gets bigger, he is a type of guy that will grow. In my opinion, I think he'll start out as an edge, but I do think he grows into being a very, very good 3 technique for the Buckeyes that can create a lot of penetration into that B gap and can be a really good pass rusher on 3rd down, will create some disruption for those guards and a lot of gap scheme run game that we're going to see, in the Big Ten. And so I think this is a huge, huge get for the D-line. And again, we get frustrated with Coach Johnson, the GOAT. and then he pops and gets, a defensive tackle when we need one. We need more depth there, and so he goes out and gets one, and a very good one, in Wilder. And so I'm glad he's in the fold, man. He was late on our radar. I had not heard much about this guy, and then boom, out of nowhere, he's a Buckeye, and so I'm glad that he's with us, and I think he's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's Thursday night at 20 to 11 when we're recording this, and we're gonna probably have to record an episode like Sunday
Yeah,
because the scuttlebutt out there is 2 to 4 commitments soon. We have our suspicions who they might be. We'll see. Um, but the first of two huge on-campus recruiting weeks um, got started with a midweek visit, which isn't something you really see. Um, Darius Gray out of Virginia kind of kicked everything off. I believe he also camped. Or no, actually, I don't think he did. It was a 7-on-7 camp yesterday.
yeah,
Um, then we had camp today, which 27 wise, whoo, son.
yeah,
Um, the stars were out.
yeah.
Um, the list for this week, we'll just run it down real quick, and then we've got 6 or 7 guys that we want to kind of do a little more of a deep dive into. Because a couple of these guys you've already heard us talk about a lot. Um, start off with Arizona offensive lineman Aaron Thomas. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. Another
Yeah.
kid who kind of a late bloomer,
Mm-hmm.
but has a ton of tools. 26th Florida offensive lineman De'Aaron Parks. Samuel Roseborough was supposed to visit, and he's out. And I
Okay.
think that has to do with the next guy who is visiting. And this is another one that Ohio State's kind of worked their way into. But some of the insiders say Ohio State's a real player, and that is offensive lineman Ekne Ogboko
Okay.
from North Carolina. And we'll talk about him a little bit more later. Um, Washington, D.C. defensive end Carter Meadows. North Carolina defensive end Keyshawn Elazaire. Pennsylvania DN Jackson Ford. North Carolina D lineman P.J. Dean. And then a couple guys that you've heard us talk a lot about. Jameer Perez and Sincere Johnson, the Glenville boys. And then Coach Slate's guy, C.J. Santa. And then Danny Odem, Florida defensive back. Zion LeGray, who I believe was committed to Ole Miss. And then Blaine Bradford, who we talked a ton about when he committed. So, stars-wise, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Um, you often wonder if these big weekends work because of the attention side of life.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the first guy we want to talk about was Darius Gray, who did a midweek visit.
Yeah. We were talking about it before we got on here. You want to say he's a must get, he's a must get. I think you're talking about a guy who could really play both sides of the ball. I mean, if you watch the film, he's a violent, mean player. He finishes every single play. On the offensive line, he's trying to literally drive you through the ground, on every single rep. And then on the defensive line, he is a dominant player. I think his future is on the defensive line, but I could see if he gets to campus, he could be a guard as well. I think he's got all the tools. I personally, given what we need on the defensive line, I think that's where he would fit best. I just think this guy is an absolute truck, and he is a monster. And this is a guy who is an absolute must get, in my opinion. And so we're just whatever it takes. Let's just throw everything at him, and whatever it takes, we need to make this happen because he is a dog, and we need more of those just mean, nasty, just foxhole guys that can really shore up those trenches for us. And so Darius Gray, in my opinion, is that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, he's a 5-star. He's number 28 overall. He's the number 2 player in the state of Virginia. And I believe he was the guy who, as soon as Tyler Bowen got the job,
Yeah,
that Tyler Bowen called. Because I think we are recruiting him as an O lineman,
yeah,
which makes a ton of sense.
yeah,
6'3", 285. I think He's probably, like we've talked about, position versatility.
Yeah.
He brings that, but man, he is mean.
He's
He
mean,
is.
man. I personally, as a defensive coach, just want all these guys on the defensive line. That's just me. I just
I
do.
get it.
I see them drive him in the ground. It's like, God, he'd be a good three technique. He'd be a good nose guard. It's immediately where my head goes.
Yeah, and the film shows. I mean, he plays the interior.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he's definitely a must get. I
Yeah.
mean, it's going to be hard. We're
Yeah.
going against the big boys for him, but I think there's some momentum there. I think, but again, we don't know. I mean, um, we'll see. It yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
how else to say it because that's the guy that one of the guys that you really want.
Absolutely, man.
The next guy we talked about a little bit a couple weeks ago, Aaron Thomas.
Yeah.
3-star, but I think you might see that creep into a low 4 before it's all said and done. Um, One thing I figured out as I was looking at him up some more, last year was his first year playing O line, and 6'6", 300 pounds.
Yeah. The monster, man.
I think that is that true tackle body. So it makes sense to move.
Yeah. It does, and again, I just can't stop thinking about the net that Coach Bowen is casting with this offensive line. We just got done talking about Darius Gray, and now we're talking about Aaron Thomas, and you're talking about two different types of players. You're talking about two different types of rankings, and I know we always talk about don't look at the ranking, watch the film. But you're just talking about two different types of guys, and he's doing whatever it takes to just continue to build up the talent level of that room, regardless of ranking. And so, he's going out to Arizona, he's going to the DMV, he's going to North Carolina, he's going wherever it takes to go get these guys. And Aaron Thomas is a guy that you take a flyer on because of the upside. The same way you take a flyer on the Armstrong twins, it's because
Yeah.
of that upside. And so, listen, if he's a guy that we really push for to get in this class and he jumps in, I think, there's good reason why. And I think Coach Bowen is the type of guy that can develop him into the player that we think or he thinks he can be.
Yeah, absolutely. So switching sides of the ball finally to your liking, um, Carter Meadows. This one is interesting. I think there was some momentum there at one point, but I think it's kind of fallen off. Number 72 overall player, 6'6", 225. So definitely needs to beef up. Number 9 edge in the country. Um, Freaky athlete, but
Yeah.
very raw technique wise.
Yeah. Listen, when it comes to these edge players, there's certain traits that you just can't coach, and it's just raw athleticism. And when you get guys like a Carter Meadows, who is 6'6", 225, that you're going to have to beef up, there's just certain ability that he has that okay, he doesn't have those fine tools yet, but what I can't coach is that freakishly athletic ability
Yeah.
that he has, right? I'm not comparing him to, I just blanked on the guy's name, Abdul Carter. I'm not comparing him to that at all, right? But you look at those type of guys who have had success rushing the quarterback, right? They take these guys who are just freakishly athletic. I can't play him at linebacker. I just find a spot for him on the edge. I can coach him up on all the other stuff. These are the type of guys you're starting to see find success. Carter Meadows is that just freak athlete that you could put out there, coach him up, bulk him up a little bit, and if he could end up in this class, great. We don't know if that will happen, but that's the type of guy that he is. I mean, he's a stud. I mean, he's got to gain some weight, no doubt about it. 225, I think, is a little generous, but I think he's got some freaky athletic ability, man, that you just can't coach. As a defensive line coach, those are the things that you just watch and you're like, I get to coach that guy? Okay, sign me up
Yeah.
for that. You know what I mean? So those are the type of guys as a defensive line coach you'll sign up to coach all day long.
So speaking of freaky athletes, we're seeing a trend here tonight with this group that's coming to campus. Jackson Ford. This is another guy who you know, I don't. If I had a crystal ball, I'm not gonna be like, oh, he's gonna be a Buckeye because I don't think he ends up here. Malvern, Pennsylvania, 6'4", 240. We are looking at him as an edge, but he also plays tight end. Um, this dude is long. He's the number 8 player in Pennsylvania and the number 18 athlete overall. It's very rare that you see a guy in this mold labeled as an athlete in the recruiting service. So that tells you a lot. Um, Plays edge, obviously, but the thing that jumped out to me watching him is this guy's a tight end, and they were sending him on go balls.
Yeah. Yeah, straight line speed, man. Like he can go get it. Defensive line wise, specifically, he's got some refining that he needs to do to his pass rush game, but he's a very physical player. He could improve his first step, but the tools and all those things are there. Again, athleticism. You can't coach that. Like those are things that this guy has, and when you watch it, again, you see him go get a go ball and run past all the DBs, and then you see him turn around at 6'4", 240 and line up as a defensive end and go get the quarterback or go blow up, a counter play or anything like that. And you're like, again, as a defensive line coach, I get to coach that. I can mold this guy into something really special. Okay. And so I could see why the Buckeyes would want to get this guy as a defensive end. You get him to 260, 265. Watch out. Like this is a guy who could keep that athleticism at 260, 265 and just be a really stout player on the edge. And so, I think he's a stud. He's not that far away from home. So I think this is a guy that the Buckeyes could really get if they really push for him.
So here comes another one that you actually are going to get the better side of a guy who plays two sides of the ball, but we're recruiting as a D lineman. And much like Darius Gray is must get, I really feel like PJ Dean is also must get. 6'3", 269, little bit undersized for a D tackle. 4-star D lineman, number 7 D lineman in the country, number 6 player in North Carolina, number 60 overall. OSU does currently lead for the Crystal Ball. Georgia, South Carolina, OSU. Also plays right tackle. The only note I jotted down, because I know you are going to be enamored with this kid, I wrote down relentless.
Yeah. Yeah, you watch his film and you see a lot of obviously offensive line play, playing tackle, and like he looks a little undersized. Like he's not like this huge guy. And I remember when we first heard about him, Ohio State was one of the only people that was really talking about him being a defensive lineman, and that's what really jumped out to him. And this is a guy who plays like he is undersized. You know what I mean? Like he plays
Right.
with that, mean streak of like, okay, I've got to prove myself constantly because some of these guys are bigger than me, right? I'm an offensive lineman and he's 6'6", 280-pound offensive tackles are the guys getting recruited. Well, I'm 6'3", 260, and I'm just as good as these guys, right?
Yep.
And so he feels like he's got to fly around and do all these different things. Like those are the guys that get recruited, a la Caden Curry. You think of those dudes who just go out and play with that high motor all the time, all the time. I think this guy does that, and so I love him. I think I these are the type of guys that I root for all day long, man. I think PJ Dean is that, and I will root for any guy who can line up at tackle. I think 6'3" is generous. I think 269 is generous. Um, he lines up a tackle and he's really good. Like he's really good. You watch his film. Most of his film's on the offensive line. But like you said, man, he's a relentless player, man. So listen, Buckeyes, go get him. Anytime Georgia is in your top 3 as an offensive or defensive lineman, you're doing something right. And
Yep.
so if we can beat them out for a battle, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Staying on the defensive side of the ball, it takes us to Danny Odem, 6'2", 180-pound corner out of Orlando, 4-star, number 22 corner in the country. I I don't even have to lay the groundwork for how you feel about this guy after watching his tape, because I know who on the current roster I comp him to, and it's IGB.
Yeah. IGB is my guy. Like, I love IGB, man. That is, maybe a little less pass interference calls this year, but this Odem is a monster. I can't. When you look at the film, like you can't believe he's a cornerback. Like he looks bigger than 6'2", 280 or 280, 180. Like
Dude,
he is a huge guy. And so like could he grow into a safety? But he's got the athleticism to be a good corner.
oh yeah,
The when I was watching his highlights, and his highlight film's really short. The clips I was watching, it was an individual game from the spring. One of the people that popped in my head, and just size wise, is the comparison, not the type of player because we don't know yet, but it was Malcolm Jenkins, like that big corner that could grow into being that bigger safety over time. I'm not saying he is Malcolm Jenkins by any means, but just the size comparison is what I kept seeing. And so, like, I mean, he's a put together individual. And so I think the athleticism, the physicality, like those are the type of guys I think the Buckeyes are trying to get into that secondary, especially in that cornerback room into BIA. So listen, man, go get him because this kid can ball.
he's physical. He's got good hips. He's very
Yeah,
fluid,
very
and
fluid.
I think his instincts are good. Like you
Yeah.
watch him on some of the delayed stuff, and he just reads the play very very well. Um, and then we kind of talked about the Samuel Rosebrow visit not happening because of the Acne Agboko. Um, some of the insiders are saying Ohio State's a true player there. Um, 6'6", 280, 4-star, number 68 overall, number 4 interior offensive lineman from Durham, North Carolina. Um, I haven't dove a lot into him because I didn't realize that it was very real. Um, but position of need, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yep.
Um, and then a couple guys that we hit on the list who we've talked about a ton. Jameer Perez, you know, get your spatulas out. I mean, I think that's at some point. Sincere Johnson announces next Friday or next Thursday. Um, it's really weird to see Glenville dudes committing this early.
Yeah, it is weird. It is very
Uh,
weird.
and then CJ Santa and Blaine Bradford, guys that are both committed. Um, so we've obviously already talked about them. A couple new 26 offers went out too. But before we talk about them, out of that group of guys, CJ, Bradford, Sincere, Jameer, obviously when we do a 26 class recap in the winter, we'll dive back into those guys. But what do you think about, any of those guys that you want to throw out there?
Well, first off, I want to shout out, my guy CJ winning the state championship in the discus, in the state of Ohio last weekend at Jesse Owens. He just a freak athlete, man. I know that was one of his number one goals going into this year was to make sure that he went out and got a state championship. Last year, he felt like he should have won it. He didn't have his best day, so to come back as a junior and go take care of business. He did that, man. So I was really pumped up for him. So shout out to him. Um, the big thing for me, man, we got to get Perez. I mean, that is. I mean, we were just talking about when we were talking about Wilder. Like that is a need in a major
Yes.
way. That body type is a need. When you look at the SEC, when you look at Georgia, when you look at Texas, when you look at the big schools that we are going to be contending with, when you look at the team up north and what they've had the last few years, when you look at Oregon, they find ways to get these big bodies in the trenches.
Yeah.
How are we going to replace Tyleik Williams? How are we going to do that? Right? We've got Cade McDonald, great, but what's after him? So Perez is a guy that is a must get, and so that is my initial thought when I think of those guys and that group that's there. Perez, we got to get him.
Yeah. So the two new offers, TJ White, who's kind of that hybrid linebacker safety.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a Tyler Atkinson backup plan.
Could be.
And then the intriguing one to me is Valden Sone from Sweden.
Okay.
He's part of the same group who comes over every year that Hero Canoe was part of.
All
They
right.
they go camping. There's legitimate interest from the kid. Like he came to the OSU camp with the intent of earning an offer. Um, Interior D lineman, dude's like 315 and moves like he's about 280.
Okay.
Looked very, very good at camp today.
Okay.
Very good.
I'm gonna have to do my research on that guy.
Uh,
I was doing a little research on the players who come from other countries and their visas and NIL today, and so that's very interesting to me. So I've got to do a deeper dive when we do some revenue sharing conversation as to how that will work for them in the future.
yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the revenue sharing thing. We will cover that once the dead period hits in July. Um, that did get passed this week. Very intriguing because I'm intrigued to see how the revenue sharing goes with the foreign players.
Yeah.
So that'll be a cool conversation to have. Um, so that kind of closes up the guys that are on campus this week. Um, like I said, there's the guys that we talked about at the beginning that we didn't cover. Are guys who may not have a lot of momentum to the Buckeyes, but camp today. 11 offers handed out after camp, which is the most of any of the June camps. Ironically enough, Tyler Bowen has not offered a single O lineman from a camp this summer.
Really?
But I can't think of who. One of the beat writers put it best though, that when Tyler Bowen got hired, he acted as Oprah. You get an offer, and you get an offer, and you get an offer. So he's already cast that net.
Yeah.
Um, Most of the offers, obviously outside of the couple guys we talked about, are 27 kids. We don't talk a lot about the 27 kids because it's so far away and the 26 class isn't done. But pay attention because the 27 class could be epic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're going to be going up against one of them next week in 7-on-7, Jameer
Oh,
Brown. So excited.
state 100-meter champion.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be fun.
I hope we're playing zone.
Yeah. Oh, we definitely will be.
Um, and Brady Edmonds. We've talked about Brady Edmonds. 5 days in Columbus. Went to Children's Hospital,
Yeah.
donating time and stuff. But I know he has said he's not going to reclassify. But the number one quarterback in the 27 class was on campus today. And camped. And looked really, really, really good. So, two-man class, maybe. Doing our diligence, maybe. Is one of them going to reclassify? Who knows?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
very, very much so. Another thing, just, because we like to throw obscure things out there, and this isn't really obscure, but Ohio State's been doing their Dudes of the Week through practices. Y'all, Jeremiah Smith's yoked.
Man.
I don't know how you guard him. I really don't.
Yeah. Quarterback throws a bad ball. That's the
And he'll jump over somebody to get it. I mean, it's crazy, man. But he would make Austin Saraveld look small in this photo, is what I'm getting at. Late bit of 27 recruiting news, right as we came on. Max Sutter, the tight end from Illinois, who we talked a lot about and, gives us serious Max Clare 2.0 vibes.
yeah, man.
Dropped the top 4 tonight. OSU, Bama, Illinois, and I think Ole Miss. OSU got some momentum there, and this kid is the truth.
Yeah, man. Listen, I love these athletic tight ends, man. I just bring them all. Like the tight end room, the multiple guys that we have. I love the love that Will Kazmarek is getting. You know, we forget about Jelani Thurman and the steps that he was taking, and you add Max Clare to that, and you got LeBlanc here still. You got the guys that the Brody Lennons and the guys that we brought in last year. If you can get a guy like this, like, listen, man, just keep on adding to that room, and we hopefully will utilize them in the most diverse ways possible. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Ross Bjork had a press conference today talking about the revenue sharing thing, but obviously got asked about Fox and the noon kickoffs.
Yeah.
And I don't want to butcher this quote because it was great. He basically, in a roundabout way, throws Fox under the bus. He goes, really, at the end of the day, there's no flexibility in the contracts. Fox bought the noon window. What we need is more flexibility. Can that happen anytime soon? I don't know. We understand why Fox went with Big Noon. We understand why we're picked all the time, but we're hoping for more flexibility. And he basically, and I think he also went as far as to say, we've carried the flag for
Pretty
Big Noon
much.
kickoff, which we have.
Yeah.
But we got to figure something out on this. I mean, we've
Got to
talked
figure
about it
something
until we're
out.
red in the face. Everybody has. But, I mean, you have played the college level.
Hmm.
And what's the difference in noon versus 7 o'clock?
Well, I mean, it depends on how you want to look at it. Okay, there are two ways you could look at it. As a If you are a college athlete who enjoys the college experience and you want to live your best life, then playing at noon allows you to fully indulge in the college experience
Yes.
in the evening, right? You can get the game out of the way, you can go celebrate your win, or you can go, you know, wash away the loss if, in however you want to do that, right? But I can tell you as a player, it's, in my opinion, I hated every second of it. The eating your pregame meal at like 7:30 in the morning is not something that's enjoyable. It is grilled chicken and eggs and hash browns and things like that. Like, it's not enjoy. I just didn't enjoy that experience. But when we would play, like we played the University of Dayton at like 3 o'clock. Like, I loved that time. Like, that was a great time to play the game because you're playing at a Division I school. You're going to get the crowd. The fans had been able to wake up and get ready for the game a little bit, and they're showing up a little rowdy, and it was fun, right? But those noon games aren't the best. Now, obviously, at Ohio State, you're dealing with a much bigger atmosphere, and it's a lot different. But the night game atmosphere for the fan experience, there's no comparison.
Right.
There's just no comparison. I have been to Buckeye games only during the noon time, and I can tell you, like, they've been fun, but it has not been like the greatest experience. My wife tells me about when she was in school and Braxton Miller threw that game-winning touchdown against Wisconsin,
Yep.
how crazy it was. My brother tells me when Ohio State played against USC, at night, how crazy it was.
It was.
The tight end who got death threats when he dropped the ball against Texas.
Ryan Hamby.
Yeah, Ryan Hamby. God, it was unfortunate. But everybody tells me how crazy that atmosphere was, and like, I wish I would get to experience that. But that electricity, and so the night atmosphere is just different, and so Buckeye fans deserve that. I'm just gonna be honest. Buckeye
Yeah, for
fans
sure.
deserve it. The Columbus deserves it. The players deserve that. But I get the idea of getting it done and out of the way, and that big noon. We're gonna watch it no matter what. It's the Buckeyes. Buckeyes are always prime time.
Yeah, and ESPN made it official. Corso's last game
Yeah.
will also be that one. Um, yeah, from a fan standpoint, I've been to noons. Obviously the Michigan game's always at noon, and that atmosphere is totally different. Um, we played Miami at 3:30, and that
Yeah.
was a pretty big game. And that atmosphere was not great though.
Yeah.
Um, night game wise, Terrell Pryor's freshman year, Penn State,
Yeah.
um, pretty crazy. I'm still telling you, if he doesn't get stripped and he jukes that defender, he scores.
Yeah.
Um, '05 Texas, you talked about that. Probably the wildest thing I've ever been a part
Yeah.
of. I mean, it started on Friday night. We were indulging in the experience.
Yeah.
Texas fans everywhere, and then that was back when they still closed Lane Avenue
Yeah.
for game day, and I bet you there were as many people outside of the stadium as there were in the stadium that night.
Wow.
Um, it was insane.
Wow.
And then USC was pretty loud, but you could hear a pin drop at the end of that game
Oh
when
yeah.
we couldn't get a stop and get the ball back.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I get it, and I look at it from a recruiting standpoint. Like I've said
Absolutely.
before, noon games are so hard for some of these guys to get to,
So tough.
especially a game like that where, yes, you're going to get your guys who want to come visit that game to watch the game, but you also want your guys that you want to see that environment. And don't get me wrong, Ohio Stadium is going to be turned on the 30th at noon.
Yeah.
The fans are going to try to make Arch Manning's life a living hell.
Absolutely.
Uh, but we'll see what happens. I mean, when you've got your AD though calling out Fox, I hope Fox takes notice.
Yeah. It's great. Ross Bjork is doing a great job so far.
He really is. I'm interested to see how these field level suites play out.
Yeah, me
I
too.
can't say that I love it,
Yeah.
but if it helps bring ticket prices down for other people, you know, now that I'm old and kind of like stay off my lawn guy, I've got to watch us play pretty much everybody I would want us to play. So I'm cool watching games at home,
Yeah.
but like I feel like everybody should get to go to a Buckeye game at one point in their life,
Yeah.
and a lot of people can't afford it right now.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough.
So, like you look at your family, your wife and the three girls, and you're looking at $700
Oh
for
my
a noon
gosh.
game against the Ohio, against Bishop Sycamore. I mean, uh, so we'll see. But yeah. So now that business is out of the way, though, we got a few minutes. We've kind of been trying to tinker some things, as you guys have noticed, and we've gotten some feedback. Um, but just kind of take a minute. Let's catch everybody up. How are you, Coach Slate, doing, the man?
Yeah, man. We're tired. But we're doing good. Girls are busy as ever. Football is picking up. Things are going good. Numbers are good. Wife's doing well. Started a new job. So we're everything's good in the Slater household, man. We can't complain too much. Real quick side note. I wanted to say this I wanted to say it earlier at the beginning of the show, but we have another Olentangy Brave who just committed to the Buckeyes today. My guy Omar Ja, we call him JJ. He was planning to attend another university, a service academy, and something didn't work out. The service academies, there's so many different things you have to go through.
Yes.
And Matt Patricia came into the school literally the second to last day of school and sought him out, said, "Hey, I want to get in contact with this kid. We're waiting on, this new whatever House bill things that pass, and if it passes, like this is a guy we want there. It passes, boom, he's a Buckeye now. So shout out to JJ, man. I'm so pumped up for
Awesome.
him. Yeah, man. Um, But yeah, man, things are good this way, man. How's everything with you?
We are chugging along. We've got the boy home for the summer. Even though we're 2 months away from moving back in already. Um, we've had some bowling trips. He did the U22 Masters a couple weeks ago, and had a top 16 finish. Not what he wanted, I think,
Okay.
but meat grinder, man.
Yeah.
Talk about putting these guys through a mental and physical just toughness exercise, tough patterns, lots of games on them, but a very very cool experience. It's structured after a PBA major tournament.
Okay.
You do your qualifying, you go into bracket, double elimination. So that was really cool though. He got to hang out with his boys a little bit. Um, so yeah, I mean, other than that, we are chugging along. Got some family stuff, going on. If send some positive vibes. Um,
Okay.
but very optimistic
There we
on
go.
that front.
All right.
You know, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are doing the best we can, getting ready to. And you guys will. I'll probably actually promote it on here. Getting ready to run a fundraiser for a cause. Gonna do a Jeremiah Smith autographed helmet. So I'm sure that will intrigue some of you guys. Also, for our new listeners, because we are over 300 subscribers on YouTube.
We're just on our way to 500, man.
Yeah, so we are gonna we're working on some giveaway stuff, um, which I actually still have a giveaway I need to mail out. I want to make sure it's a good package. I've got a couple things already, but I just want to keep adding to it. So stay tuned for that, obviously. As always, like, comment, share, spam us with, you know, feedback. Don't be afraid to hit the Facebook page too. Trying to be more active on X again. Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of a full circle catch up on things.
There we go.
So I think with that, we will see you guys. Like I said, we'll probably have to do an early week episode because I think we're going to get some booms. Um, and then obviously next week we'll dive into another massive. Like this week was big. Next week's massive for the on campus stuff.
Let's go.
All right, we'll see you guys then.